I'm gonna have
Like,
to learn how to like do these little mute edits or just for having Ben on and him dropping F bombs. But sorry, Ben, go ahead.
it was cooked because like yeah. So my national category was on the year that you're supposed to like be better and like you're the older kid in the category. I had Drew and Kai as the two young kids in my category. So it was like trying to win a national championship was cooked. It was like on my soft year, it was Drew and Kai in lead, and I was like, okay, well, so I'm just like probably not going to win nationals. And then on the younger year where I had like the older kids, I like I had Nathaniel in my regionals, and like there was 2 years where when like every kid that made it to divisionals, it was like I think they took 10 to finals in regionals, and then 8 to divisionals. Those 8 kids that went to divisionals all made finals at nationals that year. We
It's
took up
crazy.
8 of the 10 spots in finals at nationals. I was like, this is it was. I mean, and it was like I got so lucky, like to have that category, and those are like your peers growing up, or just the people that are like winning nationals, is so important. Like I can imagine being in a different year where it's like you have one kid that's pretty good, because I see those categories. There's every like few years, there's like a year where it's just like not that many good athletes, and there's one kid who just like wins every year, and he's like, this is awesome, and then has like no adversity in his life, and then gets to like adult and just gets smoked and quits immediately.
Yeah, we talk a lot about this. Like you said, you were lucky. I wonder if everyone feels lucky in that situation. I know for sure, actually, that they don't. Like
No one feels lucky
a
when
lot
they
of
have
climbers will be like,
Nathaniel Drew
"Oh
and Kai in their
no, I have
category.
this person, or I have this person, or I have this person." But when they start saying that stuff, I start to think, okay, what are your goals? Because if your goals are to be the best, which I'm not saying everyone needs to have that goal, but if your goals are to be the best, then that's as lucky as you can get, is have the other best people around you and have them to compete with you. And trying to reframe it as like I'm competing with these people instead of against these people is a conversation I have to have a lot with climbers so that they can like see the people that they compete with as people they can learn from or people that can push them. Um, so you said that you felt lucky to have these people to compete with. Like, how about you, Kai? Like, what is your relationship with other people in competition?
Well, I honestly, I was just raised. My mom was always just like, the win doesn't mean as much if the best aren't there. And
Mm.
Yeah.
so that's always how I felt. I always wanted the best there. I always wanted to prove myself against the best. Even when that was me being 13 and like entering adult competitions early and competing with like Daniel Woods and all the guys that are at the top level. I did that not because I thought I would win, but because I wanted to compete against the best because it was a litmus test. And that was always my goal in the way that I thought of competition. And also recognizing that when you're competing at that level, and the difference between winning and losing is so marginal. Uh, I mean, climbing is not a head-to-head sport. It's not boxing. Like it's a personal objective on every climb and every round of competition. And so, the only person you can be disappointed in if you don't perform is yourself,
Mm.
right? And so, to me, it was always like, if I put my best on the floor and it was enough for the win, that's great. If I don't put my best on the floor and it was enough for the win, I've left many competitions that I've won being like, that wasn't my best climbing and I wanted to do better. And then going back into the gym to train to be better because I felt like there was a weakness in my climbing or I had a bad mental day. And I also have had times where I didn't win competitions and I was like, that was the best I could have done. Like, I put it all out there. I trained and I just got to be better, you know? So I just think for me, I've always um, I don't think I've ever really focused that much on comparing myself to other people in competition, more so than comparing my best to the best of the athletes that are around me and seeing like, okay, well, that's what I can aspire to, or that's that was my best or worst climbing on the day, if anything. Does that make any sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's
Go ahead, Ben.
did you catch the that's just straight John Wooden mentality?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
I don't know who that is.
I
I
think
don't know who that
Sorry.
is.
I think
What?
he's just an old basketball coach that he has all these sayings that like failing to prepare is preparing to fail, and lots of things that are easy to think about when you're having trouble that help you move forward. I think one of the things you touched on was winning and still feeling disappointed, which is it's kind of a weird thing to say out loud. It was one of the things I was always aggravated with when great climbers. I think that's something that's personal, like to have that feeling. But I'd see a lot of great climbers like win and then put that out there on social media, and I was always thinking that's kind of disrespectful to the other people that lost against you for you to like on top of that. I mean, I know you didn't say that you put it out in public, but how do you guys feel about those kind of statements being out in public after you win? Like to me, it's just congratulate everybody, say thank you for competing with me, congratulations to second and third place, and move on.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree because it's also it's your personal. I think yeah, it's. I agree with you. I don't think that's
The
necessarily
injury thing, especially, people will be
the
like, "Oh, yeah, I won with this injured finger, or I won with this injured shoulder." It's like everyone that got into that has some injury. So if you're talking about it out loud after you win, it's kind of like, is this the first time you've won?
yeah. I agree. I think it's yeah, it's something you can talk about with yourself or with your coaches or your friends, but not something like that's not the post you make on Instagram.
Yeah.
But like
So I mean,
I think that is the route to winning though is going into competition with that mindset. Like you probably won because that's how you were feeling is like how can I perform my best and not how can I outperform everyone else. But it's then I think a responsibility to not say that out loud and not make that your Instagram post when you win. Because
yeah, I mean,
you know what I will say is I climbed like crap at finals and team trials. That was a subpar average round for me. I just was slightly less subpar than everyone else that day. Like
I was about to say, I'm not gonna lie, y'all all looked a little rough.
I have
Yeah.
had so many national championships and team trial finals that I have climbed so much better than that or that good and gotten like third or fifth or sixth and like I just got lucky that day. Like I didn't have a winning day climbing performance. I just had a slightly better performance than everyone else.
But that's why you have to go out every time and just like Kai said, put your best forward
Yeah.
because one day your best is going to match up with the round of
Yeah.
boulders, or your best is going to match up with, even though we don't like to compare, your best will match up better with somebody not peaking in their program, even though a lot of times they're better than you,
Yeah.
and your best just might be better that day. So
Or you just wait year after year until Nathaniel and Kai and Drew and Zach and Sean and Colin all stop competing,
they all go out
and
to
then you
climb.
swoop in. It's like if I just wait long enough, they'll all quit. They'll all just get old and quit. They'll get sick of it, and then you slide in there.
Well, hey, it happened, and you could have stopped too. So I mean, there's whatever you do to endure or to keep your head down and keep moving towards your goal. Like, I mean, I admire that in people, whatever it takes. Yeah.
True. I think so many thoughts just flew through my head when you said that. Funny enough. Um, but in terms of like the social media thing, well, I'm a pretty private processor. I
Hmm.
don't like to process my emotions on the internet. I also just I don't know. I grew up in a space where everything doesn't belong on the internet,
Yeah.
and so I think that some things belong in a diary or in a voice note or in a private conversation with friends. That being said, I don't judge anyone else's process or the way that they process information. I feel some people treat social media like a diary. Um, whether they should or shouldn't is their discretion. But yeah, I think that for me, I like to like pay respect to my competitors and the people who put, because like all this stuff is like it's a group effort, right? Like competitions, like the training, everything. Like no one gets to that space by themselves, and the only reason that competitions hold merit are because of the people you compete with
Hmm.
and move with. And so I feel like paying respect to the process and the people is definitely important and something that should be
Yeah.
expressed more often on social media.
Yeah.
um, yeah, that's kind of my take on it. I don't know,
Yeah,
but
you had said that you don't. This is kind of the meat of what I wanted to talk about today, actually, because when you have these failures and disappointments and like even if that moves into some depressions until like you have some successes or you start to feel progress in your programming and your competition, um, the idea is what do you do with that stuff? This is my main question. And so the only reason I don't think that it's okay to make public or put on friends and stuff your like frustrations or disappointments or put this out there is because I feel like it's kind of a burden on the people that you put it onto. And it can affect so many people in not a positive way. Maybe it can affect them in maybe it can be positive, maybe it can be negative. This is the thing I'm struggling with. So it seems like
I,
you can either go to therapy to deal with your problems, you can talk to a friend, you can take this anger and aggression and put it into your next session, or you can go on Instagram. So what is the best way, or not the best way, who knows? What is the way that you guys have discovered to deal with the frustrations and the depressions of setting huge goals?
I mean, honestly, I like to do all of the above. I think it's, I think therapy is great. Therapy is awesome and everyone should do it. I also think that having a group of friends that you can talk to in that capacity is also super important. Like Kai is one of those people to me. Like Kai is probably the person that I go to when I'm like I need to talk about this and I don't know like if it's some like they're borderline therapy conversations where I'm like I'm having these troubles or I'm having these thoughts. Like Kai's that person for me. I can like talk to Kai about anything and it is super valuable and like thank you Kai.
Are you that person for him?
I don't know.
well,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely.
This is where
I mean,
if
Kai
you're
has
that
a few of
person
those
for him
friends.
and he's that person for you, it's like reciprocal. It feels like there's balance.
Well, here's the thing. Um, I'm not the type of person that processes my emotions outwardly at first. I need time to internalize them before I start talking to people. But also my relationship with frustration is that I think that frustration is really strongly tied to helplessness. The idea that like there's something I can't do in order to progress, and it's like a frustrating like roadblock, whether that's mental, whether that's physical. And for me, I just feel like for my entire life and my career, I've always just been taught to frame like failure as a learning experience. I know that sounds so cliche, but it's true in the sense that like even when like a session's bad, a comp is bad, a climb isn't going my way, I'm so analytical of like why. And if I can answer the why, then I'm not frustrated. I'm obsessed and I'm focused. I'm like, okay, well, I need to fix this thing. Like this thing is an issue, and sometimes it's easy. You can fix it on the fly. It's a beta change, it's a breathing change. It's a mental strategy change. Sometimes it's something that's big that you can't, and I think that's usually where sometimes my biggest frustration happens. It doesn't happen super often, but when it does, it's like okay, I gotta go home and I gotta reframe everything from scratch. around this particular weakness or thing that I can't ignore any longer. And I've had that many times. And luckily, I've always either had my coach Shane or my mom or other people who are also stubborn personalities where they see what I see and will reframe my whole life around this thing that is a weakness until it becomes a strength. Um, that's a big reason why I'm so flexible now. It's because I had a nationals actually years ago where, and it was a semifinal round. It was me and Drew Rana, and we were always so close. Like if one of us breathed too hard, it was the difference between first and second. And it was a semifinal round where the difference was one fall where I was on a slab and I couldn't get my feet high enough, and it took me an extra attempt to be able to like hop my foot up in order to do the slab. But like immediately I was like, I'm not flexible enough. I need to work on high steps because like otherwise I'm not gonna like it's gonna bite me in the ass at some point. And so then we went back into the gym, and that is all I saw for months. Like Shane was setting them repeatedly, high steps, high like awkward high flexibility movements, like things where it's like I am in a uncomfortable box and I would be frustrated, I would cry sometimes, and but at the end of the day, it's like I knew I had to get past it, and so I just had to suck it up and deal with it. And eventually, it became something where like now my climbing, everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, you're so flexible! You can put yourself in such tight boxes." I was like, that was suffering. I
Mhm.
suffered to get those skills,
Yeah.
Well,
and so
this is really important thing because there are two directions you can go right there. Like you could make an excuse for why you didn't have the outcome you wanted, or you could address like this was my problem and I need to fix this problem. So I think people need to really pay attention to what you just said is that you saw the problem and you addressed the problem, even though the addressing of the problem was back into this discomfort and suffering when you could have just gone and spent hours and hours climbing the things that you were successful at. This is a hard thing to do is not make
Yeah.
an excuse, but address a problem.
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's a bit of a combination of like my personality and also, the style of coaching that I was under, to where like if I as a climber had a strong weakness that I could see, I couldn't move past it. Like it was like I couldn't sleep. Like I was like I have to fix this problem because it doesn't matter if I'm twice as strong in the things that I'm good at. If I never address my weaknesses and every time it shows up, I'm gonna be scared of it. I'm gonna underperform on it. And so like I have to be better at this thing. And that level of hyper focus is not always healthy, but it works in the end, I think. Um, but it's something that I've always done throughout my career, and I think yeah, it's something that like in life like, it's easy when it's one small thing. Like me just working on my hamstring flexibility and my hip flexibility. It's like it's not maybe small, but it's one thing to hone in on. It can sometimes be more difficult when you think that like the whole house is on fire and you're like, where do I start? I think that can be like where the real frustration kicks in because you're like, how do I organize my training or my process to progress when I don't even know how to highlight the issues in front of me? I think that's where it really takes like community, and whether that's coaching, whether that's other athletes around you or whatever resource you have available to be able to kind of sit down, and that's the lesson in life, right? Like just sitting down, being able to put it all on paper and organize like how you feel, like what can you tangibly put down on paper and like track to see like, okay, this is where I feel I see faults, and being able to systematically work towards improving that.
Totally. I feel like I've been dealing with that the last couple of years, if not just the last year, is like the thing that is like holding me back is my mental capability. Like for me, I like the thing that I really struggle with is I'm like a very emotional rock climber, for better or worse. And like the best way to put it, I like talked to a sports psychologist after burn because I had like the biggest meltdown of like in a long time that I've had. And he was like, it looks like watching you climb, you have like a V12 engine under your hood, which is your like your emotions. And like if you get it in the right gear and you're driving down the right road, you've got this unstoppable engine. But if you like don't know how to control it and it starts to like do the wrong thing, you're now fighting against this V12 engine and you roll the car and the house cat you like it's like one of those what movie did we watch the other day, Kai? I forget what.
F1.
F1 races where like you spin out a little bit and then the car just flips over the barriers and explodes. And that's like how my climbing feels. And he was like spot on. I was like, that's exactly how it feels, because like if I start a round off right and I'm just like happy and psyched and going, I'm like unstoppable. I'm just like real good at rock climbing. But if I like
I agree.
start the round off wrong and like or something sets me off and like I just like and the emotion that kicks off is like anger or frustration or sadness or like any of these negative emotions. Like if I like turn around and I decide that I don't like a boulder problem and I let that be the defining factor for my round, I'm just like unhelpable for the rest of the round. It's just a disaster. It's like the car's on fire. It's bad. And so like
Yeah.
I've been really struggling, and it's like it's not this thing where I can like go to the gym and stretch every day. I'm like, how do I deal with this thing? And I'm like, I've been trying so many different things of like,
You should read the
um,
book. I was just reading. Choke.
yeah, exactly.
It's literally about this exact thing.
And yeah, exactly. And so like one thing I tried was like, I was like, okay, so I spent like almost an entire season not even turning on the engine. Like I would just not start the car and I would just like be completely emotionless and indifferent the whole round. But none of those rounds I had my superpower, which was my V12 engine, turned on. I was just trying to like roll the car down the thing, and so like I didn't have an emotional breakdown on any of the rounds, but I also just didn't pop off on any of the rounds because I never started my engine. And so like that's something I've been dealing with that's been really difficult for me to figure out is like how do I because how do I get this car going the right direction every round where I can like be okay with the failure but then also like have this emotional like let my emotions propel me forward.
This is right on time with what, like, one of my other big questions is when should we suppress emotions and when should we embrace them? So I think a lot of thinking is that we should always embrace our emotions or we should never suppress our emotions. So just thinking about that for a few minutes.
But I was just going to say that that was very in line with the question I had for you that I come up with in my brain because we work so our mental processing of comps and pressure and all that is so different
Mm.
because we're just completely opposite athletes and like we like antithesize each other for our strengths and weaknesses, like right, like my strength and faults is consistency. Like where I land is where I land. If I'm the best, I will stay the best. If I am like 15th, I will stay 15th. Like if that's where my fitness is and that's where I stack amongst the athletes, I've always been like that. Like even the one bouldering season that I did for World Cups, I was stuck on the bubble of semis the whole season. I was literally 25th, 24th, 23rd, 22nd, 21st, straight through the season, and I
Yeah.
was like, what the fuck? But the one thing I've always admired about athletes like you is that idea that because you're more emotional athletes, you can like turn it on and like find that deep fire that like helped you overperform in moments in competition. And I'm just like that's never been me. I'm
Yeah,
like I'm like hyper analytical. I'm like granted like I'll never have the faulty comp where my mind shuts down and I like underperform. But I also don't have the comp where like I'm so on fire that like I'm performing twice as well as my best.
yeah, exactly.
That's just not me. I'm like, but That's the reason why I've always prioritized preparation so much because I know that if I'm over prepared, if I train my ass off and I'm just better,
Yep.
then I'll show it. I'll just be better on the day.
Totally. Preparation, 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 preparation.
Oh my gosh. I was telling him that like what he was talking about before about him being a really highly emotional athlete, which is something we have beefed about in the past. But I it's a strength and a weakness and something that I've always admired, like that ability where like Ben is one of those
Wait, wait,
athletes
wait, wait,
where
wait. No, no, no. What's the beef? How are you gonna have
oh
we
it's
had beefed about in the past and not say the beef? Because everyone's gonna just be in the comments like, "What was the beef?"
oh my gosh. No, it's just that, emotions are a double-edged sword. Like they can propel you to great heights, but they can also destroy the morale of the environment of
Mm.
yourself and around you. And sometimes Ben wears his emotions on his sleeve and we can all feel them. And so we've had to work on that in you know, using our big boy words. But I think
Or
in
not
as a
using our
whole,
big boy words at the TC during mock
yeah,
rounds.
yeah, not doing that.
I
That
got
that's not
two yellow cards yesterday during the mock round.
that's crazy. You know better.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Josh ripped a piece of caution tape off and handed it to me mid round and was like, watch your language.
Oh my gosh, Benjamin. But I was like the positive of that though is that Ben's one of those athletes where I've seen him, and I see it more now that I'm not competing because I actually get to watch him climb more often. But like I've seen him like really turn on a fight. It's kind of unbelievable in the sense where like he just overperforms beyond like I'll train with him in the gym. I'm like, yeah, he's strong, but then I'll see him perform in a competition, and when he's on and when his emotions are high, he'll just exceed his potential in a way that like I just I can't do it, and a lot of most athletes can't, and I think that's like really interesting because like for me I was always the opposite style of athlete where like my strength and perhaps fault is consistency. It's like where I land is where I land. Like if I'm training and I know that I'm stronger and better uh than perhaps my competition, like that's where I'll be. Like I'll just stay there. But if I'm 15th best in the world, I will stay 15th. Like that is just, and like it's it doesn't matter what the field is, it doesn't matter like what's going on. It was always so frustrating for me because I would have like, for example, like bouldering was never my strength, but I had one season where I did the bouldering World Cups and I stayed on the bubble of semifinals at every World Cup. Like my results were literally like 25th, 24th, 23rd, 22nd, 21st. Like all like I was always one bonus, one attempt, one breath away from making it, and like I couldn't like I'm not going to be the athlete that like has like a mental breakdown in a competition and like fall off in results, but I'm also not the athlete where like I can just like turn on some strange light in my stomach and like exceed twice my ability. Like that's I usually am just like a consistency type of athlete.
Do you
And so
think?
like I've always like envied that in some of the athletes where I'm just like, how do y'all do that?
But you also like had a belief. Like you just said, I'm consistent, and if I know I'm better and stronger than the people that are here, that's where I'll end up. But like,
Right.
how do you come to that conclusion? Is it previous results or and did you feel like you were 25th when you were on the bubble? Did you feel like you were on the bubble for bouldering? Like how you had just said out loud? Like some of this self-talk stuff is people in sports psychology talk about it a lot. And I just heard you say that I'm consistent. If I know I'm better than these people, I'll be better than these people. And then you said I was on the bubble, like always on the bubble. Did you feel like when you were on the bubble that you were better than these people and you just ended up on the
No,
bubble, or was
I
that
felt
in your head?
No, I think it was more so the fact that, like, I mean, when you train with all the other athletes, especially at a World Cup level, it's like the difference is so small that so often it's like when you're like when you're training with other athletes, you're just like, okay, like this is my strength over the competitors. Like if I get boulders or routes like this, like I will perform at a higher level than like some boulders that aren't my strengths, right? And it was just one of those things where I think when I was competing in bouldering, like do I have as much confidence in my bouldering than my sport? Like absolutely not. However, I do know that I'm a well-rounded, smart climber, so that even if I don't have some skills, I could usually like make up for it in other spaces. But sometimes it was just like I don't know, like I never didn't perform my best. It was just that sometimes, like when it came to like how I shuffled out in the field, I've always since I was a kid, I just kind of stayed in that range. Like when I found my groove in youth climbing, I was very consistently at the top, right? When I found my groove in like open climbing, like I was very consistent. But I always found like it always like for me, I'm a preparations athlete. Like how I prepare is how I perform, and so like I've always been super obsessed with honing in my training. Like being like if I know that if I hit these marks, if I show up confident in these skills, that they will show on the wall. And for me, it was like it's always been closely tied. Like if I underprepared, I would underperform. So for me, it wasn't about even comparing myself to other athletes. It was comparing me to myself. Do I feel my best going into this space? And like, do I feel like I've trained these skills hard enough? If that makes sense.
Yeah, and the believing in yourself part of that, it makes sense when you've trained with the other athletes, you know their strengths and weaknesses and your strengths and weaknesses, and you've done all the preparation. A thing I have trouble with is this statement, believe in yourself, because
Yeah.
I think there are real objective standards for believing in yourself. And so for just anyone to tell someone believe in yourself, you can be the best. I mean, I just don't agree with it because someone who hasn't prepared and put all the time, like a better statement would be like, I love and care about you no matter what your results are. But believe in yourself, you can win is, I think, a dangerous thing to say to somebody.
I guess that's the thing. It's like it wasn't a belief that I could win. It was a belief that I could perform on what was in front of me. I feel like when you have in any sport, there's always going to be a standard or a marker that you're aiming for. That if you reach it, it's like you're prepared for whatever's out there. Like if you're a sprinter, if you're running a certain time, you're competitive with the world, right? And climbing is a little bit different because there is no like
Standard.
staunch performance metric, but it's a feeling and it's hard to explain. But like when you find that click, like on slab, for example, when you find that click, when you know that like how to balance your feet, balance your hips, find that equilibrium, it's like it's hard to not feel confident on that style in that space. Like when you find your click in your power training or your bouldering, and you know that like there's no way they're gonna set a series of pinches on this wall and I won't do it. Like like when that clicks, and when that click happens, it's like it fosters confidence in that style. If
Yeah,
that makes sense.
what I was saying was you believing in yourself was justified because of the preparation. Yeah, and so that's what I want to that's why I try to tell athletes is like, hey, you should believe in yourself if you prepared, and if you have not prepared, like you should probably think about this competition as a training session to like get better at competing or whatever it is. But if you haven't prepared, you shouldn't believe that you can win.
Failing to
Or
prepare is preparing to fail.
yeah, I mean it's kind of yeah, when
But
I
that's
hear
the thing. Like, what is? But I guess that's the thing. Like, what is preparation? Because there's so many athletes. Um, I don't know. I don't want to say names per se, but like people who, like I've seen in the gym, who perhaps aren't at the level of their competitors in that specific environment, but then you put them in a competitive environment and they exceed
oh yeah.
to the point where you're like, how? How?
I know who you're
And
talking about.
And the thing, the thing
They are a
about that is like,
competitor.
what is preparation, right? Like, is it just physically like honing the skills in or being good enough, or is it honing in like the mental space of being able to like find your inner fire, right? Like I
Both of
think
those.
it's just not linear.
Yeah, it's both of those things, right? So there's so many people you guys probably see way more people that are on the opposite side of that, which in the gym they're monsters. But when they're when there's a lot of people around them, they're like introverts and extroverts. They're extroverts that feed on these crowds and things. And so they're able to perform at their gym capacity.
Right.
And there are introverts that it kind of cuts them into 80% of what they're capable of. So there's a lot of
Fair.
different mental preparation required for those people. So yeah, thinking about that mental space is really important. And Olympians discuss that when you talk to them about the things that put them in a medal, they just talk about mental stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's also I feel like it's you have to know where you get your power from, like in terms of where you compete the best. Like for me, uh, innately, when I compete, I become extremely internal. Like I can hear my breathing, I can feel my toes, I can feel my hips and like my equilibrium. Like I become super almost like hyper aware. The analogy I always use is like that feeling in your mouth when you chew mint gum and like, everything feels so like bright and crystal clear. Like that's how my body feels when I'm competing, where I'm like so internal, and like for me, like that's how I perform. And so like it doesn't matter what the crowd's saying or how loud people are or what the announcer is saying. I wouldn't hear it anyway. Like I'm very much in my zone, and so for me, because of that, because I'm so internal, it's like my I feel like it kind of goes hand in hand with like my style of like consistency, where it's just like I'm gonna perform how I perform because I was already honed into my space, right? Metal or not, placement or not. Whereas some people is like the external environment matters so much more. Whereas like if there's a crowd and there's people yelling and screaming for them, they're going to like woo, like fly off the charts in terms of like their climbing. Or like if it's, I think an athlete like that is like Simone Biles, where she talked about how like in Tokyo when she was performing and there was no crowds because of COVID, she like got way more nervous, and I think it contributed a lot to her twisties and like her having to pull out the Olympics. Whereas when she walked into Paris and there was crowds and there was chanting and there was all this external stuff going on in the environment, like she was like, "That's where I perform at my best." And I feel like I'm the kind of athlete where I'm like, it wouldn't matter, like either way.